Hi, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, we're talking about opposites attract with Michelle Nedelec. She has over 20 years of experience in executive coaching, working with clients ranging from 8 figures to solopreneurs. Michelle runs the creative side of her done-for-you services, helping entrepreneurs set up and maintain their digital marketing through her company Awareness Strategies at awarenessstrategies.com. She also draws on her experience from running her clinic, Success Therapy. Welcome to Relationship Alchemy, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Marie Elizabeth. This is going to be awesome.
I'm so excited. So when we had a conversation earlier, you brought up something that I just really wanted you to talk about on the show, which is why I'm having you here. First, I wanted to hear your theory of why we get into relationships, because we started to get into that. And I was like, wait, we have to do this for the podcast.
We have to record this. It is awesome. Well, I do have a little bit of a twisted perception on relationships. And now I'll just give you a little bit of background on why I have that. So I used to teach personal development training courses for people to help them to change their results in their life. And what I had discovered was that we tend to be we are on a very individual experience in life. And I think we surround ourselves with other people, things, excitement, houses, buildings, weather, just to keep us entertained and to give us more of an experience of ourselves. And it creates an illusion that we don't see ourselves. We think we're going through this journey with other people and that other people do things to us. And the reality of it is that we don't. Every experience we have is ours and ours alone. I can be standing with somebody going through the same exact experience, holding their hand and everything, but how they see it, feel it, and experience it is going to be totally different than how I do based on my experience in life, my genes, my ability to see. Like everything is different about me than is about the other person, even though we may be going through the exact same experience together. Now, the fun part in that is I believe that we came to this planet to discover ourselves and to see who we really are, despite the illusions that we surround ourselves with. Now that comes to the whole relationship side of things. We tend to be pretty lazy. We don't really want to do that. It's a lot like work and that whole work, crying right? thing. I don't want to go through that again. So I'm not going to really do that personal development thing again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find somebody who compliments me enough, somebody that pisses me off just enough that they're in that little sweet spot of they're going to bring out some things in me so that I can look at them and go, why does that make me mad? Why does that, push my buttons? Why do I have that reaction to this thing the way that I'm having it? And I don't ignore it completely because I'm in love with you. So therefore I am going to figure out what this thing is and why I keep spazzing out about whatever that thing is. So we don't really find somebody to complete us. We find somebody to piss us off. Just enough. Yeah. Not so that it's always a nicey relationship, because if it's always nicey, then I'm not going to grow and I'm not going to figure out who I am and I'm going to get bored really fast. But I don't want you to piss me off too much that we're constantly fighting and arguing and you're in the doghouse all the time. So I want it to be just in that sweet spot where I get to see enough of me that I can work on myself at a pace that I'm comfortable with. And that is totally different for everybody. And it may be different in different times of our lives, which is, I think, why we go one of the many reasons why we go through so many relationships.
Beautifully said. And I'm just over here going, yes, it's so aligned with what I think about and talk about at Relationship Alchemy. This word alchemy means taking all the stuff that you're talking about, the irritants, the triggers, the thoughts where we tend to assign blame instead of take responsibility, all that stuff, and learn how to work with it in such a way that we actually deepen our intimacy with each other, that we deepen our intimacy with ourselves. And so when we were talking, you talked about this opposites attract idea because you have currently your husband, I believe he's your husband, right? You're married.
He is not. He's my boyfriend of 22 years.
Okay, yeah. So
I like to say that he's my partner in business and pleasure.
Oh, I love that. That's just like Patrick. Yeah, except more the pleasure part. That you two are very opposite. And so I want to hear more about that attraction. What is it to be with someone who's so opposite to you in that way that you're mentioning. I'm hearing you say like, oh, just enough irritation, but not so much that it's constant fighting, what's it like to be partners in business and pleasure?
Well, it is very unique. And I think one of the reasons that it works so well is because I am so focused on, it's not about him, it's about me. And this is an opportunity for me to learn. So for being in business together for 20 years or so, up until May of this year, just because we moved houses, our offices, our desks were literally an inch apart. Wow. So there was a space 1 inch apart where a divider fit in. And if we needed to have, you can't see me behind the wall, then the divider would come out. But literally our offices were an inch apart from each other, desks were apart from each other. And most people would go insane working with their spouse that close together, especially when I am outgoing, gregarious, I laugh really loud, I swear a lot, I don't have many filters. I don't really care about filters. If it offends you, well, then walk out of the room. I'm cool with that. And this is how this is going down. He, on the other hand, is what I like to call your stereotypical engineer, which drives him crazy. He goes, we're not stereotypical. Like, I know you when you walk in a room.
There's some parallels. Yeah, like Patrick's an engineer too. So there's definitely some.
And so he's very quiet, very much introverted, although he is coming out of his shell after 20 years. I'm kind of creeping it out of him. He loves to be in head down, butt up in software and figuring out algorithms and all that kind of fun stuff. Like his idea of a good time is not going to a social party with lots of music, because he just sits there and goes like, why am I here? I could be working right now. Like, really?
Yeah.
He's at happy place is with, software and a beer, and he's in his happy place. And I am just not that. Now, we do have a lot of things in common in that I used to be a computer programmer and I have the ability to think analytically. Although he laughs at me and goes, don't ever call yourself a computer programmer. You learned how to program. You're not a computer programmer. Okay, I won't insult them like that. I studied computer programming once and did a couple of things in it. So I understand languaging and all that kind of fun stuff. And it was actually, computer programming was my foray into understanding the mind and how it works, because the information I was getting at that time was like, it was scrambled at best. And I went, we can't create anything that isn't already here right now. So if computers work this way, our mind has to work that way. Like we had to have created the computer from our ability to think in that analytical way. So then I came up with this process that we call success therapy. And it's being able to find the if-then statements in somebody's thinking, rewrite that programming, render it with new programming, and poof, they walk out of the session and they think and feel and act in a different way because we've hit render on the software and the software operates in a different way.
So it's been fascinating. Oh my God.
Cool. Yeah. So we do have some things in common, but I'm definitely, the creative side of the company, and he's definitely the tech side of the company. So that works well too.
Have you had to learn, since you're such a team, have you had to kind of learn whose lane is what and how not to overstep? And how have you managed?
Hourly.
Yeah, hourly.
Right. When business changes, you change, those roles change, everything changes. So at the beginning of our relationship, it was kind of funny because it was all flowers and glory and wonder for about 6 months. And then he goes and says, we're not always going to agree on everything. And I'm not even going to try to agree. And I lost my shit because, well, how can you not want to agree on things like that? That's the whole purpose of being in a relationship. Little did I realize, no, that's not the reason for being in a relationship. We don't want that. So that took me about 15 years to figure out. No, I'm
good. Yeah. Well, hey, that's faster than most. Way to speed down that track.
Yeah. So why not go into a personal development industry, teach it, and then that way I can learn it faster. So then I realized, I love the fact that he is him, and I am me. And, it's only rarely that those things come together. But it was kind of a beautiful match in that he taught me that it's okay to disagree, because in my family, it wasn't okay to disagree. If you didn't agree, you were an idiot. If you were wrong, you were an idiot. If you were anything other than what I am, you're an idiot. So I had a lot of idiot crap that I had to get over. And the best way I found to get over it was to date somebody super smart who's way smarter than me, and going, okay, I'm going to face this button every moment of my life.
That's amazing. I mean, first of all, the courage to just be like, I'm sure, I know that wasn't conscious. Probably it wasn't like I'm going to deliberately find the smartest person in the room so I can challenge myself on the idiot factor. But how courageous your soul, I just want to, kudos to your soul that was like, oh yeah, that one, that's going to be the right challenge for me. Because I could just as easily see you choosing someone who wouldn't challenge you, right? Because you have you're amazing. You're a powerful entrepreneur, is powerful woman. It'd be so easy to choose someone quote unquote weaker than you, right? Who would be quote unquote easy, right? And so I love that you were like, oh no, this one, because then I get to face my stuff.
Exactly. And it was very much a conscious choice to stay in that, realizing that it wasn't abusive. It was just enlightening.
Yes.
Sometimes those two are very close.
Well, it's so true. I love that I want to repeat that for anybody who missed that, staying in a situation that you realize, oh, this isn't abusive, it's enlightening. So even though right now I may not like what's going on, what I recognize that it's showing me something for my own growth. Obviously, if something is actually abusive, you get out, you get the support, you all of that. But there are times where we do kind of fall into victim in our relationships when we're disagreeing, especially if it pushes us into an old spot. Like an old pattern, something we inherited from our family or from the culture. And when we go into that space, we're no longer in present time. We're no longer in our conscious mind, in the frontal cortex, where we actually have rationality and decision-making capability. We've now gone into fight or flight, victim, freeze, all of that brain stuff that is, kind of larger than our control at that point. And what I usually suggest people do there is to come down, to step away from the situation, tend to the nervous system, bring yourself down back to center so that you can re-enter the situation from a more resourced place. Would that be what you'd recommend too?
Oh, absolutely. Because one of the reasons that I ended up in this relationship in particular is because I had other relationships that were very explosive. And, it's like, bam, get the hell out of my way. I'm leaving. I'm going this direction. And then I'd go and find that exact same person and get into a relationship with them. Go, wow, you're an asshole. I'm getting out of this relationship. And then go the opposite direction. I find another person exactly like them, except for more of that. And I went, girlfriend, you seem to be creating your own little shit show here. Just saying.
Well, and you're the common denominator.
Right. These people didn't know each other before, and yet they were identical other than their driver's license. So, who has the same driver's license? Oh, yeah, that would be me. Yeah. So that was kind of one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, well, if I'm bringing on my own shit show, I got to step back and look at, what's going on, because he is him. His name is Brad. And the meaning behind Brad is it's a little nail that creates stability in a system. He is a rock. He is exactly the same now as he was then, and he's exactly the same before this conversation as after this conversation. I am the Technicolor unicorn dust flying all over the place that every time you walk into a room, maybe she's happy, maybe she's bitchy, maybe she's going to rip my face off. I do have this amazing ability to be able to rip somebody's face off and pull their heart out with my tongue in the span of 3 sentences, which sometimes it's awesome and powerful, and sometimes it's terrifying and frightening. And he just stares at me and goes, yeah, whatever.
I love that. And every tornado needs a grounding plug, right? So, I love that complementarity between the two of you. I've heard you talk about something called an argument elevator. And I wanted you to unpack that more for our listeners, because it's such a cool way to visualize and work with this situation. So what's the argument elevator?
So I think everybody is familiar with them. They just haven't heard them called this before. And
Exactly.
It's when somebody says something and it pushes somebody else's buttons and they get elevated. So that person then fights back and pushes the first person's buttons. That person gets elevated and pushes the other person's button. They get elevated. Before you know it, the two of you are on the 23rd floor. Not one of you has a clue as to where are how this started. Because you go back and play, you did this, well, you did that. Well, when I walked in the room, you said that. Okay, so whose fault is it when nobody's in the room yet? Right. Like, so this actually started before either one of you were in the room, and it just kind of collides. So how I separate this when we find ourselves perpetually up the argument elevator is to separate the two rooms. It's like you go on the left side, you go on the right side. We're going to rip the entire building in half, and you're going to realize that this has nothing to do with that other person. It has everything to do with you. These are your buttons. They are your, I hit it, and understand that we are like the cockpit of a 747. We have more buttons on us than we know exist, let alone anybody else. And we don't come with a user manual. And some of these buttons are constantly changing. Now, keep in mind, some of these buttons you like. Somebody gives me the hug button and I love that. And it's like, yes, this is awesome. I love that. And I relate well to the hug button. Some people don't relate so well to the hug button. They hate when that button gets pushed. So it's understanding that we all have all of these buttons and they're constantly being pushed. And we like to say that the holidays are your test of enlightenment. It's like you think you've rewired all your buttons and you're like, yes, this is awesome. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. You go back home to your family for a week and you realize, hey, I still have that button.
There they are.
Still pisses me off.
That reminds me of Ram Dass used to say, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's true, Jess, because they created those buttons.
So when you've gone up the argument elevator, I'm hearing you say you split the building. Does that mean like you take a literal time out and go to separate rooms and work each kind of like sort out your own stuff, or were you talking more physically? What's that?
I highly recommend that.
I do too. I have people take timeouts all the time.
Well, and when you find yourself going up there's no point in staying in that situation because you don't have the mental capacity to be able to deal with it independently. And I don't want to say forthright, but it's you're not neutral. Yeah. And when you're not neutral, that shit's about you. It's not about them. So separate yourself from the situation. I'm going to go for a walk. I'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll talk about this. How dare you walk out of me? And while we're having a discussion on this, I need to. I will be back. I promise.
That's the key part. The I will be back part, right? Because we don't want to be deliberately, let's say our partner has abandonment stuff, right? And you're like, oh, this is getting too heated. I'm out of there. Well, they're going to be like, oh my God, they're abandoned. Right. That's going to freak them out. And so exactly what you said, I need to do this to settle my system. I'll be back. Like those are the magic words that then help each partner, depending on what each partner's history is. It helps each person trust that, okay, we're going to come back to this. We're going to be able to talk through this. This isn't the end. This is just like a recalibration. And we're going to do, we'll be more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in that time, one, cool off. Absolutely. So if it's the middle of winter in Canada, it's awesome. If it's in the middle of, Vietnam and summertime, maybe not so awesome. Go find an air conditioned place. But exactly. To be able to physically cool down, run cold water over your wrists. It's the best way to cool your body down quickly. Yes. And then that opens up your frontal cortex and you can start to think again. In that state, we can then go back to, okay, clearly I'm overreacting over this because it was blah. And so unless somebody actually died in that room back there, this is an overreaction to it. So to be able to go back. Now, my philosophy is we create our conditioning when we're little, when we're emotional. And until we hit the age of reason, like 7 or 9, everything is coming to us at full emotional force and it's coming straight in. Until we're 2, in fact, we have no way to even stop it from coming in. It just comes. If I am less than 2 years old and my mom is feeling happy, I feel happy. If my mom's feeling pissed off, I'm feeling pissed off. If somebody knocks on the door and it scares her, I'm scared. I can't stop myself from feeling that way. Yep. So a lot of people, when they're doing the whole personal development thing, think, oh, well, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm smarter than this. This isn't happening. Well, it might not be happening to you, but it's happening to that little kid that got scared when the doorbell rang, not understanding why they were scared or what they should be afraid of, because they were just feeling mom's feeling. They weren't doing anything else. Yep. So going back to the argument, I might have been elevated when the doorbell rang. And then he comes in and goes, what's going on over here? And so I'm already elevated because I heard the doorbell ring.
Yes.
And he comes in and he says this. That's how we went up the elevator and go,
Yep.
oh, okay, I get it. It's got nothing to do with him. It's got everything to do with mom freaking out because the doorbell rang. For all I know, it could have been a collector. It could have been because dad wasn't home and she was pregnant and she's freaking out. Whatever her jam was at that time, I totally get it.
Yep.
It's her issue. She's dealt with it quite clearly and life is grand. Okay, good. Now, how do I want to react when doorbells ring from now on? I want to get happy. I want to be like the dog going, hey, somebody's here. Yes,
somebody's at the door.
Presents, Amazon.
Treats.
Exactly. That's how I want to react. Great. Set that back in the body and the doorbell reactor button and hit render. Okay, when I hear doorbell ring, hey, I'm actually kind of excited. This could be good. Or in neutral, which is fine.
Yep.
Now I can go back into the conversation and go, okay, when you walked in the door and you said, what's going on around here? What were you talking about?
Great.
I don't even know what you meant by that.
Great. So I'm hearing you say that when you've reset yourself, you're able to come back and respond with curiosity. Is that right?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Because now you're in a neutral spot. You're not getting reacted to that. So when they're doing their little song and dance going, oh my God, and I was so excited. I was so upset. And you're like Brad going, okay, you're doing your thing. So now
there's the thing.
It's like I'm neutral and I'm watching the show. I'm entertained by it. And what do you need from me?
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. So I'm in full agreement with that way of being able to come back to curiosity and actually recognize that. So Patrick and I have a kind of similar long-standing, because he's very technological as an engineer and he also has, a lot of computer skills. There are times where he wants to help me with something techie that I may know how to do, but it's just not working right then. And I'm, for a non-tech person, I do okay, right? But there's this thing in me that just responds immediately to a certain way that he steps in to help, as if he's saying, I'm incapable, which is not what he's saying at all. It's my trigger of being incapable or dumb with technology, or like, oh, poor female, can't, whatever my trigger is around it. And so we have had to converse over and over again. I mean, now we just have a shorthand, he'll just come in and be like, hey, I want to help you with this. I don't think you're dumb.
Yes or no.
Yes or no. Right?
Safe.
Like, I don't think I want to help you with this, not because I think you're dumb, but because you got a lot on your plate. Like, do you want my help? And then I get to opt in. But we had to figure out that shorthand through a lot of argument elevators, and me finally realizing like, oh, this is my charge on being thought dumb by somebody.
And an understanding too, that it's your button. And if you want to keep the button, go ahead and keep the button. Yeah. And then you create this agreement the two of you have, and that's fine. And if you really wanted to, you could rewire the button so that every time he goes to want some help, you're like, yes, this is awesome.
Yes,
I do want to get this shit done with now.
Exactly. I mean, and that's much more like it's like now, over the years it's changed, and that's much more how it is. But every now and then this little tone will sneak in and I'll be like, oh, wait, there's that tone, But it's,
that doorbell's coming back.
Oh, there's that doorbell, the dumbbell. So in terms of rewiring, is that something that, is that something that someone has to have a practitioner do with them? Or is that a process they can take themselves through on their own?
Yes, and both. So sometimes we have a weak wiring, right? Something happened and it's like, oh, that pissed me off. Oh, that was because of this. Oh, okay, great. Boom, done. Not an issue. Sometimes like the whole world of NLP, it's all forward pacing. It's like, let's just, get over this crap and move forward. Sometimes, most of the time that works awesomely. Sometimes you got to go back, you got to figure this crap out, and it's painful and we're living in our own filters and we need somebody to help us to overcome that thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just means that you have what I like to affectionately call the Christmas lights of conditioning going on. And if you've ever opened up a box of Christmas lights and they're like tied up in a knot, you don't know where the beginning and the end is. And you know that there's 7 strands of lights in there, but There's no, you got to clean up your living room. You got to take all the furniture away.
Lay them all out.
Put that knot in the middle and just start unwiring and laying out each cord of those lights, and then deciding, hey, this one's got a broken light on it. We got to throw the whole thing out. I don't want this. This is old.
Yes.
This one's good. We will keep this one. And it takes time to sort that stuff out, because when you have, even 2 ideas connected with each other, if you have like 3 or 7, well, then it's brutal to do. But sometimes we'll do silly things like and by sometimes I mean always, and I mean we, because we're human, is we attach 2 ideas together.
Yeah.
Right.
I call it a crossed wire. Yeah.
Yeah. But love hurts. Love feels good. Love completes me. Love makes me happy. I need love in order to be blah. So love is just love. It's just a thing. Right. And I could say fingers may help me work. Well, no, a finger is just a finger. A thing is just a thing. And it has 0 meaning, 0 intention, 0 anything other than that which we give it. And as soon as we put another thought together with that, it then becomes our conditioning. Yes. So, and we can't not do it. That's the important part to understand. It would be lovely.
We're meaning-making machines. It's just what we do.
We have to.
Yeah.
So we can acknowledge the fact that the thing is just a thing. But then as soon as I go and do something about it, whether I move towards it or away from it, I'm now creating that second idea. I need this. I want this. I don't need this. Whatever that second thing is about it. So coming back to the whole relationship side of things is understanding sometimes you're going to be able to just look at it and go, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that person anymore. What am I going to do about it? Awesome. Absolutely, you can. Sometimes it becomes a little more difficult, especially in the area of relationships, but I love the curiosity. Yeah. So I'm like, what if you were just curious about why your spouse does the things that they do? So instead of being judgmental about it and going, oh, because he's the man, he has to do this. Because she's the wife, she has to do this. Because he walked in the door, it meant this. Because he looked at my hair, not my face, it meant that.
Yeah.
To just back up and just go, okay, curiosity. What did you see when you did that? Why did you do that? And just, hey, maybe, just maybe. And sometimes they'll go, I don't know. Maybe they don't know. Maybe it's just where their eyes felt. Maybe the light just grabbed their attention and that's where they went with it. And they didn't even know that that's what happened. So sometimes people can't explain their behavior. Sometimes you got to go back to, okay, everything about you drives me crazy, but I'm in a relationship with you. So I didn't always feel this way. Once upon a time, I was absolutely enamored by the way you take your socks off and leave them in the living room. Once upon a time, I was absolutely enamored by whatever it is. Yeah. And we got to go and find what that thing was that we were enamored by, because it tends to be those things that we dismiss really quickly in the honeymoon stage. That is that thing that attracted us to them, that allows us to get pissed off just enough to figure out our own thing, and turf the rest of it. It's this magic thing that happens that I can go straight through an entire room. I can see you and go, wow, I love you. You are fantastic. I will marry you. I will spend the rest of my life with you. And I don't notice the pig pen dust all around you. As soon as we get out of the honeymoon phase, it's like, geez, why do you always have dust around you? Why are you such a mess? And it's like, that is the exact thing that's going on for you that you had to overcome in order for that button to be pushed, to realize, oh, my disgust with dust really has to do with blah, blah, blah. And then you get to go and rewrite. And then
you get to work that out. Exactly. So beautifully said. What a perfect image. I love the pig pen dust. That is just, so accurate. So I understand you have a free gift for our audience today, and I would love for you to tell us about it.
Awesome. It doesn't really have a lot to do with relationships, but it does have a lot to do with what I believe is the evolution of mankind. And when I say mankind, I mean humanity, is that as we're doing this whole thing called evolving and seeing the truth of ourselves and whatever that might mean, who we are and what we're made of and what we're capable of, I think we go from being a consumer, and in my ideal world, to being a business owner, meaning that you can run companies that run by themselves without you being there and dependent on it to run. Now, that may sound really weird of what the hell does that have to do with evolution? But when we come into the world, we have, we consume things. We eat, we touch, we play, we're just taking it in, emotions, energy, everything. We just take it all in and we consume things. At some point in time, we go, hey, I really want to have that. But in order to get that, I need this thing called money, whatever that might be. So then we go out and get typically a job and we consume a little bit more of what we need. And then we kind of go, I really want a lot more. And I don't know how to do it. So then we evolve through to either upper management if we're going up the corporate ladder, or we go into sales if we're going the commission route. And I kind of say all roads lead to Rome. Eventually, we have this burning desire to go and run a company, become what I call a crazy entrepreneur, because all of a sudden the rules of the game change 180 degrees. And then once we're this entrepreneur, like in the Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, we want to transition into business ownership, but we don't know how to do that because we are both the tradesperson, the visionary, and
we're all the bits of the company. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, how do you split yourself into three and yet interact with all three? And how do you understand that you are that triple braided cord that's impossible to break, but you want to unravel it and keep it together at the same time? So the book is called The Business Ownership Mindset, and it's being able to understand that, one, that transition, two, that the rules of success change in every step that you take and why they change, how they change, and that there's nothing wrong with them. They change when you go into a different thing. And as you go into that entrepreneurialness, you start to understand things about yourself that you never could have seen in an entrepreneurial role. And when you step up into a business role, you see things of yourself that you never could have seen even in the entrepreneurial role.
Yep.
So it's not about running the world and owning the world, and capitalism is grand and all this. I do believe capitalism is grand, but it's about being able to see who you are, what you're made of, and what you're capable and competent of, and how do you create and contribute to the universe in your own unique and special way. And everybody, to me, needs to be creating and contributing in their own special way, whatever that means.
In the way that's true for them. That's beautiful. Yeah. And to me, I see a huge parallel, even though in the book you're talking about business ownership mindset, that there's a parallel for me always between the personal development side of being a business owner, of being an entrepreneur, because it is a path that will reveal you to yourself like few other things. And the other main path that I see that does that is relationship. So to me, there's a huge parallel, even though the topic of the book isn't relationship. I can imagine that there's useful things, even for someone who at this point is in a job, isn't yet a business owner, hasn't figured out what their thing is, so to speak, to go out on their own about. There could still be usefulness in understanding the different stages and understanding how different, practices and success principles come into play in different stages, because that's true in relationship as well. We don't start at the top, at the apex of skill and function in relationship. Most of us start not so functional and not so skillful in relationship, and we learn the hard way through trial and error over a long period of time. I aim to shorten that trajectory with this podcast and with my coaching. But, the reality is most of us are not super great at it, just like, and we have to learn through the reflection. And just like a business owner learns through the reflection. So I'm excited. I'm going to go download this book myself.
Well, and a lot of people say when they read it, it's like, if nothing else, I figured out why I do what I do and why I think that this is the place I need to be in. And if that's all you see, that's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yay. Like to see yourself more clearly. How great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, listeners, you can find Michelle at awarenessstrategies.com. And it's just been such a joy speaking with you today. I so love your energy. It's so much fun. And thanks everyone for listening. This is Relationship Alchemy. And remember, till next time, a great relationship starts with you.